My name is David Brennan, and I run a restoration business in a town so small you could walk from one end to the other in 20 minutes if you didn't stop to chat. I fix things: old furniture, broken hinges, cracked picture frames, anything that matters enough to someone that they'd rather repair it than replace it. It's honest work, the kind that leaves your hands rough and your back sore, but lets you sleep at night knowing you built something real. I learned the trade from my father, who learned it from his. 3 generations of Brennans fixing what other people throw away. There's a kind of poetry in that, I suppose, taking something broken and making it whole again. I used to think that's what family was supposed to be too, taking care of each other, fixing the cracks before they spread. I was wrong. My daughter's name is Victoria. She never liked being called Vicky, not even when she was little. She'd correct anyone who tried, even at 5 years old, standing there with her hands on her hips like some pint-sized CEO. "It's Victoria," she'd say, all serious. My wife Laura thought it was adorable. I thought it was determination. Turns out we were both right, just not in the way we'd hoped. Victoria moved to Charleston 3 years ago, said she needed to build her brand. That's how she talks now. Everything's a brand. Everything's optics. Everything's about image. She runs an event planning company, or tries to. Mostly she plans parties for people with too much money and too little sense, but she calls it curating experiences for discerning clientele. I call it throwing expensive parties, but nobody asks me. She doesn't visit much, maybe twice a year, and even then it feels like an obligation, like she's checking a box on some list. Visit parents. Done. Back to real life. She always has an excuse ready before she even arrives. Can't stay long. Big client meeting, important conference call. Her phone is always buzzing, always pulling her attention somewhere else, somewhere more important than a Sunday dinner with her old man. Laura handles it better than I do. She's got patience like a saint, my wife. She'll sit there smiling while Victoria talks about her latest project, some gala for people we've never heard of, in places we'll never go. Laura asks the right questions, makes the right noises, acts interested even when Victoria barely looks up from her phone. I try. God knows I try. But there's only so many times you can listen to your daughter talk about herself before you realize she hasn't asked you a single question in return. The last time she visited was in March. Spring was just starting to show itself, those first few warm days that make you believe winter might actually end. She drove up in a car that cost more than I made in 2 years, some sleek silver thing that looked like it belonged in a showroom, not on our gravel driveway. She got out wearing heels that immediately sank into the soft ground, and I watched her face twist with annoyance. "You really should pave this," she said instead of hello. "Nice to see you too, sweetheart." She kissed my cheek, quick and perfunctory, then headed inside where Laura was already setting the table. We had pot roast. Victoria picked at hers and talked about her newest client, some hotel chain that wanted her to plan their annual shareholders event. She made it sound like she'd been personally selected by royalty. Laura was impressed. I was trying to remember the last time Victoria had asked me about my work. Halfway through dinner, her phone rang. She glanced at it, and her whole face lit up in a way it hadn't when she'd seen us. "I have to take this," she said, already standing. "It's Marcus." Marcus, her fiancé, or boyfriend, or partner. I honestly couldn't keep track of what they were calling each other these days. He worked in finance, something with investments that he'd tried to explain to me once, and I'd pretended to understand. He wore suits that probably cost more than my truck and had a smile that never quite reached his eyes. Victoria was obsessed with him. The way she talked about him, you'd think he'd invented money. She stepped outside to take the call, and I could hear her voice through the window, pitched higher, brighter, more animated than it had been all evening. Laura reached across the table and squeezed my hand. "She's busy," Laura said quietly. "That's all. She's ashamed of us." "David, she is, Laura. You know it. I know it. Hell, she probably knows it too. She just won't admit it." Laura didn't argue. She just squeezed my hand tighter and went back to her dinner. Victoria came back inside 20 minutes later, apologized without meaning it, and said she had to leave early. Big day tomorrow. Marcus had some event. She'd call us later. She didn't call. That was March. It's October now, and I've heard from her exactly twice. Once in a text asking if I still had the account login for a business software I'd set up years ago when she first started her company. Once in an email forward, some chain letter thing about family that she probably sent to 50 people without thinking. No personal message. No, "How are you?" Just the forward and a generic "thought of you" at the end. I should have seen it coming. The signs were there. The way she started referring to Charleston as home instead of here. The way she stopped mentioning us in her social media posts. The way her voice got tight and clipped whenever I asked about visiting her instead of always expecting her to come here. She was pulling away, bit by bit, cutting the strings that tied her to this place, to us, to the life she came from. But I didn't see it. Or maybe I did, and I just didn't want to believe it. Because despite everything, despite the distance and the silence and the barely concealed impatience whenever I called, she was still my daughter. I still remembered teaching her to ride a bike in the driveway, holding the seat until she was ready, letting go when she said she was brave enough. I still remembered her kindergarten graduation, that little cap on her head, how proud she'd been. I still remembered her calling me from college at 2 a.m. because she'd gotten a flat tire and didn't know who else to call. I remembered loving her before she decided I wasn't good enough. The invitation came in late September, not a real invitation, just a text. Victoria was planning some kind of networking event in Charleston, her biggest one yet. She wanted us to show support. That's how she phrased it. Not, I'd love for you to be there, or I want you to see what I've built. Just show support, like we were campaign donors instead of her parents. Laura was excited. She bought a new dress, navy blue with little flowers on it, and made me promise I'd wear something other than my work clothes. I packed slacks and a button-down shirt, the ones I wore to church on the rare Sundays we went. It felt like too much effort for a party, but Laura was happy, so I went along with it. We drove down on a Saturday morning, 4 hours through flat country roads and stretches of pine forest that all looked the same. Laura chatted about what the event might be like, whether Victoria would introduce us to Marcus's family, if we'd finally get to see her apartment. I drove and made non-committal noises because I had a knot in my stomach that I couldn't explain. Something felt off, like when you hear a noise in the house at night and you're not sure if it's just the pipes or something worse. Victoria had asked us to meet her for brunch before the event. Some place with a French name I couldn't pronounce, all white tablecloths and tiny portions. The kind of place where the coffee costs $8 and they act like they're doing you a favor. We got there early, because that's what you do when you're from a small town. You show up early. You're polite. You don't make a fuss. Victoria arrived 20 minutes late with Marcus and 2 other women I didn't recognize. She was wearing a white dress that probably cost more than our monthly mortgage payment, and her hair was done up in some elaborate style that must have taken hours. She looked beautiful. She also looked nothing like the daughter I remembered. Mom, Dad. She air-kissed both of us, the kind where your cheeks don't actually touch. Thanks so much for coming down. This is Marcus. You remember Marcus, and this is Jenna and Claire. They're helping with the event tonight. We shook hands all around. Marcus's handshake was weak, the kind where he barely gripped your hand at all. Jenna and Claire smiled with their mouths, but not their eyes. We all sat down, and immediately the conversation shifted to the event. Victoria was talking a mile a minute about sponsors and vendors and media coverage, and Marcus was nodding along like everything she said was profound wisdom. Jenna and Claire chimed in occasionally with compliments that sounded rehearsed. Nobody asked us anything, not how the drive was, not how we'd been, not what was new in our lives. We were just there, taking up space at the table, the obligatory parents who had to be included because it would look bad not to. The food came, those tiny portions I'd expected, arranged on plates like art projects. I ate mine in 4 bites and was still hungry. Laura kept smiling, kept trying to join the conversation, but every time she spoke, Victoria would acknowledge her with a quick nod and immediately redirect back to the event. It was like watching someone bat away a fly. Victoria, are your parents actually coming tonight? Because the seating chart is already... Oh, they're definitely coming, Victoria interrupted, laughing. They drove all this way. We have to make room for them, even if... She trailed off, glanced at me, then back at Jenna. Even if they don't exactly fit the image we're going for. The table went quiet for half a second. Then Claire laughed, one of those polite laughs that's supposed to smooth over awkwardness, but only makes it worse. Marcus was looking at his phone. Jenna was suddenly very interested in her mimosa. Laura's hand found mine under the table. Victoria cleared her throat. I just mean, it's a professional crowd tonight, very curated. Dad, you didn't bring your work boots, did you? She said it like it was a joke, but her eyes were serious. Left them in the truck, I said quietly. Good. And Mom, you'll want to maybe... She gestured vaguely at Laura's dress. Tone it down a bit. The flowers are very sweet, but it's a pretty sophisticated crowd. Laura's fingers tightened around mine. Her voice was steady when she spoke. I think I'll be just fine, honey. Victoria smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. Of course, I'm sure you will. Brunch lasted another 40 minutes. It felt like 4 hours. When the check came, I reached for it, but Marcus waved me off with a patronizing smile. I've got this one, David. You've driven all this way. Least I can do. We left the restaurant, and Victoria hugged us both goodbye, promising we'd see her later at the event. She had to go check on some last-minute details. Couldn't have anything going wrong. This was her big break, she said. The event that would put her on the map. Everything had to be perfect. We went back to the hotel room we'd booked. Laura sat on the edge of the bed, still in her dress with the flowers, and I could see her blinking back tears. She didn't mean it, Laura said. Yeah, she did. She's just stressed. Big event. Lots of pressure. She's ashamed of us, Laura. That's what doesn't fit the image means. And we're not good enough for her anymore. Laura looked at me, and I saw something in her face I'd never seen before. Not quite anger, not quite resignation, something harder. What are you going to do? She asked. Nothing. What can I do? She stood up and walked to the bathroom, paused at the door. You're not done yet, David. Don't let her script your role. Then she closed the door, and I heard the shower start. I sat there on the hotel bed, in that generic room that could have been anywhere in America, and I felt something shift inside me, something cold and clear and sharp. Victoria wanted me out of her image. Fine. But she'd forgotten something important. You can't build an empire on someone else's foundation and then kick them out of the house. I pulled out my phone and opened my email. Found the account management portal for the business software suite I'd set up for her years ago. The one she'd texted me about. The master account that controlled everything. Venue bookings, vendor contracts, sponsorship coordination, event insurance verification, all tied to systems I'd paid for, subscriptions in my name, licenses under my old business entity that I'd never officially dissolved. She'd built her entire operation on infrastructure I owned, and she'd forgotten about it because it just worked. Because I'd never asked her to pay me back. Because I was dad, and that's what dads do. They support their kids. They don't ask for credit. They don't demand recognition. They definitely don't pull the rug out from under you. My finger hovered over the cancel subscription button. Laura's words echoed in my head. Don't let her script your role. I pressed the button. The confirmation screen appeared. Are you sure you want to cancel? This will immediately terminate access for all sub-accounts. I clicked confirm. Then I closed the browser, set my phone on the nightstand, and lay back on the bed. The shower was still running. Outside, Charleston hummed with evening traffic. Somewhere across the city, my daughter was probably checking last-minute details, making sure everything was perfect for her big night. Everything except the foundation she'd built it on, which I just pulled out from under her. My phone started ringing 10 minutes later. I let it ring. While you're here, hit the hype button, don't forget to subscribe and support this channel with a like. And tell us below. Have you ever faced something like this? The phone rang 12 times before it stopped, then immediately started again. I watched it buzz on the nightstand like an angry insect, Victoria's name flashing on the screen. My stomach was doing flips, that sick feeling you get when you know you've just done something you can't take back. But underneath the nausea was something else, something that felt a lot like satisfaction. Let it ring. Laura came out of the bathroom wrapped in a towel, her hair wet. She saw my phone dancing on the nightstand and raised an eyebrow. Victoria? Yep. You going to answer? Nope. She studied me for a long moment, then nodded. Didn't ask why, didn't tell me I should pick up. Just went to her suitcase and started getting dressed. That's the thing about 30 years of marriage. Sometimes you don't need explanations. You just know. The phone finally stopped ringing. 30 seconds later, a text came through. Then another. Then 5 more in rapid succession. I didn't read them. I could imagine what they said. The panic, the accusations, the demands. I'd deal with it later. Right now, I wanted to sit with what I'd done. Feel it. Understand it. I'd just sabotaged my daughter's biggest career event. And I didn't feel bad about it. That should have bothered me more than it did. What did you do? Laura asked quietly. She was dressed now, standing by the window looking out at the Charleston skyline. Canceled the subscription. The business software? Everything. Master account controls the whole system, venue verification, vendor contracts, sponsor coordination portal, insurance documentation. All of it runs through that platform. Jesus, David. She built her business on my foundation and then told me I didn't fit her image. What was I supposed to do? Laura turned from the window. Her face was unreadable. I don't know. But you just did it. You're mad. I'm not mad. She paused. I'm not sure what I am. My phone buzzed again. This time a call from a number I didn't recognize. Probably the venue or a vendor, wondering why everything just went dark. I declined it. Another text from Victoria, then another call. How bad is it going to be? Laura asked. Bad. Without that system, she can't verify anything. Venues require proof of insurance and booking confirmation through the platform. Vendors need contract authentication. Sponsors need verification of event registration and licensing. Everything's integrated. You lose access to the hub, you lose access to everything. So her event tonight won't happen. Laura sat down on the bed next to me. We stared at the wall together, my phone continuing its desperate dance on the nightstand. 3 years of silence and casual dismissal and barely concealed embarrassment, and it all came down to this. One button, one cancellation, one quiet act of revenge. We should go home, Laura said finally. What about the event? She looked at me like I was an idiot. David, there's not going to be an event. She was right. We packed our things, loaded the truck, and headed out of Charleston before the sun set. My phone rang the entire drive home. Victoria, Marcus, unknown numbers, a few voicemails that I didn't listen to, text messages that piled up unread. By the time we crossed back into our county, I had 63 notifications. I deleted all of them. We got home around midnight. The house was dark and quiet, the way it always was, the way it had been for 30 years. Laura went straight to bed without saying much. I stayed up, sitting at the kitchen table with a beer I didn't really want, staring at my phone. Part of me wanted to check the messages, see how bad the fallout was, confirm that what I'd done had actually worked. But another part of me, the part that was still trying to figure out who I'd just become, knew that checking would make it real in a different way. Right now, it was still abstract. A button pressed, a subscription canceled, nothing more. Reading Victoria's panic would make it personal. I went to bed without checking. The next morning, Laura made coffee and didn't mention anything. We moved around the kitchen like dancers who'd rehearsed the same routine for decades, not speaking, not needing to. She made toast, I scrambled eggs. We ate at the table with the Sunday paper spread between us, acting like everything was normal. It wasn't normal. My phone was still off. I'd powered it down around 2 a.m. when the vibrations kept waking me up. Now it sat on the counter, dark and silent. A little black rectangle full of consequences I wasn't ready to face. You going to turn that on? Laura asked, nodding toward the phone. Eventually. She's going to show up here. I know. What are you going to say to her? I looked at my wife. Really looked at her. She'd aged gracefully, Laura had. Silver hair she refused to dye, laugh lines around her eyes, hands that knew how to fix things almost as well as mine. She'd stood by me for 3 decades, through good times and lean years, through Victoria's difficult teenage phase and her even more difficult 20s, through every choice, every mistake, every moment of doubt. I don't know yet, I admitted. Laura reached across the table and took my hand. Whatever you say, I'm with you. I squeezed her hand back. Even if I'm wrong? Even then. But David? She paused. I don't think you're wrong. I turned my phone on around noon. It immediately exploded with notifications. 74 text messages, 21 missed calls, 9 voicemails, 3 emails. I scrolled through them, not reading in detail, just catching fragments. Victoria. Dad, what did you do? Victoria. Everything is down. Call me right now. Victoria. This isn't funny. The event is tonight. Victoria. I'm losing thousands of dollars. Victoria. Venue canceled, sponsor pulled out. Victoria. You have to fix this. Victoria. Dad, answer your phone. Unknown number? This is Amanda from Sterling Events. We need to verify your booking confirmation. Unknown. Number. Mr. Brennan, this is Bradley from Coastal Insurance. We're showing your policy as inactive. Marcus. David, we need to talk about what you did. This is unacceptable. I read that last one twice. Unacceptable. Like I was a child who'd misbehaved, like Marcus, who'd been dating my daughter for 8 months, had any right to lecture me about anything. I called my workshop. It's a small operation, just me and sometimes a part-timer when I have too much work. I keep the phone line active even on weekends in case someone has an emergency. People don't always break things Monday through Friday. The phone rang 6 times before someone picked up, but it wasn't the answering machine. It was a voice I recognized. Brennan Restoration, this is Victoria. I almost hung up. Almost. But something stopped me. Maybe curiosity, maybe cruelty, maybe just the need to hear her voice and know that what I'd done had landed exactly the way I'd intended. Hey, sweetheart. Silence. Then, Dad. You're at my workshop. Where the hell have you been? I've been calling you for 12 hours. Phone was off. Phone was off. Phone was off. Her voice was rising, getting that shrill edge it got when she was really angry. Dad, do you have any idea what you did? What you cost me? I canceled a subscription. You destroyed my event. Everything was linked to that system. The venue, the vendors, the sponsors, the insurance verification, everything. I had 200 people confirmed, actual executives, investors, people who matter, and I had to cancel it all because you decided to throw a tantrum. I didn't throw a tantrum, Victoria. I just stopped paying for something you'd forgotten was mine. Forgotten. I didn't forget. I was going to... She stopped, regrouping. When she spoke again, her voice was colder, more controlled. You did this because of brunch, because of one stupid comment. It wasn't the comment, it was the sentiment behind it. What sentiment? That you wore work boots to my business events? That's a sentiment now? That I don't fit your image, Victoria. That you're embarrassed of me. That you'd rather I just disappeared so you don't have to explain where you came from. Another silence. Longer this time. I never said that. You didn't have to. I heard her breathing on the other end. Slow, deliberate breaths like she was trying to calm herself down. It wasn't working. Dad, I need you to reactivate the account. Right now. I have vendors calling me, threatening lawsuits. The venue wants their deposit back. The sponsors are asking questions about my credibility. I have people I've been cultivating relationships with for months thinking I'm either a scammer or incompetent. You have to fix this. Why would I do that? Because I'm your daughter. You sure about that? Because yesterday at brunch, I felt more like a liability than family. Oh my God. She laughed, but it wasn't a happy sound. You're actually going to hold that over me? One moment of honesty and you're going to sabotage my entire career? One moment? Victoria, I haven't heard from you in months except when you needed something. You don't visit, you don't call, you barely acknowledge we exist except when it's convenient for you, and then when we do show up, you make it clear we're an embarrassment. So yeah, maybe I'm holding that over you. Maybe I'm tired of being treated like something you scraped off your shoe. You know what? Fine. You want an apology? I'm sorry. I'm sorry I said you didn't fit the image. I'm sorry I made you feel bad. There. Now fix it. No. What? I said no. Dad, you don't get to do this. That system, those subscriptions, they're for my business, my company. You can't just pull them because your feelings got hurt. Actually, I can. They're in my name, my accounts, my money. I set them up to help you when you were starting out, and you've been using them ever since without so much as a thank you. So yeah, Victoria, I absolutely can pull them. I just did. She was quiet for so long I thought she'd hung up. Then, I've been telling people I built everything myself. I know. I told them I came from nothing, that I worked my way up with no help, that everything I have, I earned. I know that too. So if people find out I was using my father's accounts this whole time, they'll know you lied. Yeah, that's kind of the point. You're ruining my life. No, Victoria, I'm just stepping out of it, like you wanted. I hung up. My hands were shaking. Adrenaline dump. Same thing that happens after a close call while driving or when you almost drop something expensive. My heart was hammering in my chest, and I felt simultaneously elated and sick. That was my daughter, my little girl, the one I'd taught to ride a bike, and I just told her no in the coldest way possible. Laura appeared in the doorway of the kitchen. She'd been listening. She's coming here, Laura said. I know. What are you going to do when she shows up? I looked at my wife, at the woman who'd just told me she supported me even if I was wrong, and I realized I didn't have an answer, because the truth was I didn't know what I was doing anymore. I'd pressed a button in anger and watched my daughter's world collapse, and now she was probably already on the highway, driving 4 hours to confront me, and I had no plan beyond the satisfaction of watching her panic. I guess we'll find out, I said. Victoria's car pulled into the driveway at 4:37 p.m. I know because I'd been watching the clock since noon, waiting. The silver sedan that cost more than my annual income came to a sharp stop on the gravel, and she got out like a storm rolling in. Still wearing the white dress from brunch, now wrinkled and stained. Her hair was a mess. Her makeup was smeared. She looked like she'd been crying for hours. She looked destroyed. And some dark part of me was glad. The documents Marcus sent me were damning. Venue contracts, vendor agreements, sponsorship deals, insurance applications, all bearing my signature, or something that was supposed to be my signature. Some were decent forgeries, close enough that if you weren't looking carefully, you might not notice. Others were sloppy, rushed, obviously fake. Victoria had been signing my name for almost 2 years. I printed everything, organized it chronologically, compared the signatures against documents I'd actually signed. The pattern was clear. Early contracts showed careful imitation, someone taking time to study my handwriting. Later ones got careless, like she'd stopped worrying about getting caught, or stopped caring. Laura came back into the kitchen around noon. Her eyes were red. She looked at the papers spread across the table and didn't say anything for a while. "You're really doing this." "I have to." "No, you don't. You could just pay them. Work out payment plans. Declare bankruptcy if you have to. But you're choosing to prove fraud. You're choosing to destroy Victoria." "She destroyed herself, Laura. I'm just refusing to go down with her. She's our daughter." "Say it again. Maybe this time it'll make me feel guilty enough to stop." Laura sat down across from me, picked up one of the contracts, studied the signature. "This doesn't look like your writing at all." "I know. So why did they accept it?" "Because nobody checks. You put a signature on a contract, you file the paperwork, everyone assumes it's legitimate. That's how fraud works. It relies on trust. The trust you used to have with your daughter. That's not fair." "None of this is fair, David. This whole situation is a disaster, and I'm watching you turn it into a war. At some point, you have to decide what's more important, being right or having a family." I set down the contract I was holding. "What would you do? If this was you, if Victoria had used your name, forged your signature, left you holding the bag for hundreds of thousands of dollars in debt, what would you do?" "I'd talk to her." "I tried that. She hung up on me, told me to pay for her mistakes." "So try again. Go to Charleston. Sit down with her face to face. Make her understand what she's done. Make her fix it. But don't do this, David. Don't send her to prison." "I'm not sending her anywhere. She did that to herself." "Keep telling yourself that. Maybe eventually you'll believe it." She stood up and walked out. This time I followed her. "Laura, wait." She stopped in the hallway, didn't turn around. "I'm not the villain here," I said. "I'm trying to protect us, to protect what we've built. Victoria made her choices. Now she has to live with the consequences. And so do we. Do you think we can just move on from this? Do you think we send our daughter to prison and then go back to having coffee in the morning and pretending everything's fine? What's the alternative? Let her ruin us financially, lose the house, lose everything?" Laura finally turned around. Her face was hard in a way I'd never seen before. "The alternative is you find another way. You're a smart man, David. You've fixed impossible things before. So fix this, but fix it without destroying what's left of our family." "How?" "I don't know, but you figure it out. Because I'm telling you right now, if you press charges against Victoria, if you send her to prison, I won't forgive you, not ever." The words hit like a physical blow. "You're choosing her over me? I'm choosing to believe we can be better than this, both of you. But if I have to choose between my husband, who's become someone I don't recognize, and my daughter who made terrible mistakes, yeah, David, I'll choose her every time." She walked away, bedroom door closed, again with that quiet that meant crying. I stood in the hallway, papers in my hand, proof of fraud, proof of betrayal, proof that I was right and Victoria was wrong, and none of it mattered, because I was about to lose my wife too. My phone rang. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. "Mr. Brennan, this is Detective Sarah Morrison with the Charleston Police Department. I need to speak with you about some allegations regarding Victoria Brennan and Brennan Restoration, LLC." "What allegations?" "We've received multiple complaints from vendors and sponsors alleging fraud. Your business name is on all the contracts in question. I need you to come in for an interview to clarify your involvement." "I wasn't involved." "Then you need to make a formal statement to that effect, and if you're claiming your daughter forged your signature, we'll need to open a criminal investigation." I need time to think about this." "Sir, I understand this is a family matter, but fraud is a serious crime. If you're a victim, we need your cooperation. If you're complicit, we need to know that too." "I'm not complicit." "Then come make a statement. The sooner we get this cleared up, the better for everyone involved." She gave me an address and a time. Tomorrow morning, 10 a.m. I agreed without really processing what I was agreeing to. When I hung up, I realized the choice had been made for me. The police were involved now. There was no putting this back in the box, no finding another way. Victoria was going to be investigated whether I wanted it or not. All I could do was decide whether I'd cooperate or lie to protect her. I called Marcus back. "Police just contacted me." "Yeah, they called me too. Guess someone reported the fraud." "Was it you?" "No, but I'm not surprised. Victoria pissed off a lot of powerful people when she canceled that event. Someone was bound to escalate." "What did you tell them?" "The truth, that Victoria handled all the business operations, that I was just a financial backer. They didn't ask me about the documents I sent you. Yet. Yeah, yet. I rubbed my temples. My head was pounding. Marcus, what kind of person is she? Really? Because I thought I knew my daughter, and then I find out she's been forging signatures and stealing business entities, and I don't know who she is anymore. You want the truth? Yeah. She's ambitious, sometimes too ambitious. She wants success so badly she can't see the cost. And she's convinced herself that what she's doing isn't wrong because she's doing it for the right reasons. Building a business, making a name for herself. In her mind, using your LLC was just a shortcut. No different than borrowing a car without asking. Borrowing a car doesn't leave you liable for 6 figures of debt. I know, but that's how she sees it. And when you canceled that subscription, you didn't just sabotage her event. You proved her worldview wrong. You proved that actions have consequences, and she can't handle that. So what's she going to do? Honestly, I think she's going to try to pin everything on you, claim you were a silent partner, that you knew about the contracts, that you authorized everything. Because if she admits she did this alone, she's facing prison time. Jesus Christ. Yeah. So if I were you, I'd get a lawyer, a good one. Because Victoria's scared, and scared people do desperate things. He hung up. I sat on the couch and tried to process what was happening. My daughter was going to throw me under the bus to save herself. The police were investigating. My wife was threatening to leave me. And I had less than 24 hours to decide how I was going to play this. Laura came back out. She'd stopped crying, but her face was set in stone. I heard you on the phone, she said. Police are involved? Yeah. So it's out of your hands now. Seems that way. What are you going to tell them? The truth. That Victoria forged my signature. That I had no knowledge of any of these contracts. That I'm as much a victim as the vendors she defrauded. Laura nodded slowly. Okay. Okay? You're right. If the police are involved, if this is already in motion, there's no point in lying. Tell the truth. Let them sort it out. But David? She looked at me with tears in her eyes. When this is over, when Victoria is dealing with whatever consequences come her way, I want you to remember something. What? You did this. You started this. You canceled that subscription knowing it would hurt her, and then you escalated it step by step until we ended up here. So whatever happens to Victoria, whatever prison sentence she gets, whatever life she has afterward, that's on you. Not legally, but morally. You did this to your own daughter. She did it to herself. Keep telling yourself that. She went back to the bedroom. I sat on the couch alone, surrounded by evidence of my daughter's crimes, and I tried to convince myself that Laura was wrong. I couldn't. 3 days passed. Laura didn't come home. Victoria didn't call. The police didn't contact me with updates. The vendors kept calling, but I stopped answering. Let them leave voicemails. Let them send threatening letters. Detective Morrison had said not to pay anything, so I wasn't paying anything. I went to work. Fixed furniture, restored a set of dining room chairs for Mrs. Patterson down the street, rebuilt a cabinet hinge for the Methodist church, kept my hands busy so my mind couldn't wander. Didn't work very well. On the 4th day, Marcus called. She knows, he said without preamble. Knows what? That I gave you the documents. She figured it out. I'm the only one who had access to her files. What did she say? She threw a lamp at me, an actual lamp. Then she told me to get out and never come back. So I'm at a hotel now, calling my lawyer about dissolving our engagement contract. Did you know engagement contracts are a thing? I didn't. Apparently, when you're engaged to Victoria, everything is a contract. I'm sorry. Don't be. I should have seen this coming. She's been using me the same way she used you. Credit cards, connections, reputation. I was just too stupid to realize it. You're not stupid. I proposed to a woman who'd throw me to the wolves the second things got hard. That's pretty stupid. He sighed. Anyway, I thought you should know. She's escalating. Calling people, telling them you were a silent partner in the business, that you knew about everything. She's trying to establish that you were involved so the fraud charges stick to you instead of her. I figured she would. You don't sound surprised. I'm not. This is who she is. I just didn't want to see it before. Marcus was quiet for a moment. What are you going to do if she goes to prison? I don't know. You could drop the charges. Tell the police you're not cooperating. And then what? Take the fall for her fraud? Spend the next decade paying off debt I didn't incur? No, but I don't know, man. She's your daughter. At some point, doesn't that matter more than being right? My wife said the same thing. Smart woman. She left me? Can't say I blame her. He paused. Look, I'm not defending what Victoria did. She used both of us. She lied, she forged documents, she committed actual crimes, but she's also desperate and scared and making terrible decisions because she can't see another way out. Maybe if someone showed her a different option. I'm not that someone, Marcus. She burned that bridge. Yeah, I guess she did. He hung up. I sat in my workshop, surrounded by half-finished projects, and tried to figure out how my life had gotten so completely derailed. 4 months ago, everything was fine. Quiet, predictable. Victoria was distant, but that was normal for adult children. Laura and I were happy. Work was steady. Now my daughter was facing prison, my wife was gone, and I was drowning in debt that wasn't mine, but might as well be. All because I'd pressed a button. No, that wasn't fair. All because Victoria had built a house of cards, and I'd stopped being the foundation. All because she'd lied and stolen and forged, and fraud wasn't something you could just walk away from. All because actions have consequences, and she'd spent years avoiding hers. But it didn't feel like justice anymore. It just felt like destruction. My phone rang. Laura. I answered immediately. Hey. Don't hey me. I'm calling to tell you Victoria was arrested. The world tilted. What? Detective Morrison called me. Said they had enough evidence to charge Victoria with fraud, forgery, and identity theft. They picked her up an hour ago. She's being arraigned tomorrow morning. Jesus Christ. This is your fault, David. You gave them the evidence. You pressed charges. You did this. Laura, she's our daughter, our little girl, and she's sitting in a jail cell right now because you couldn't let go of your pride. This isn't about pride. Then what is it about? Explain it to me, because I'm trying to understand how you became someone who'd do this to his own child, and I can't figure it out. She stole from me, Laura. She forged my signature. She committed fraud using my business. What was I supposed to do? You were supposed to protect her. You're her father. That's your job. No, my job was to raise her to be a decent human being. Somewhere along the way, I failed at that. But I'm not going to cover for her crimes because she's too proud to admit she was wrong. She's 27 years old. She made mistakes. That doesn't mean she should go to prison. Yeah, it does. That's how the law works. Laura was crying now. Full sobs, the kind I'd only heard a handful of times in 30 years. When her mother died, when we lost our first pregnancy, when Victoria was in a car accident at 16 and we thought we might lose her. I can't forgive you for this, she choked out. I can't even look at you right now. Laura, please. I'm staying with my sister. Don't call me. Don't come here. Just leave me alone. She hung up. I stood in my workshop, phone in hand, and felt the last piece of my life crack apart. Victoria was arrested. Laura was gone. My marriage was over, and I'd done it all to myself. No. Victoria had done this. Victoria had lied, stolen, forged. Victoria had put me in this position. All I'd done was refuse to be her victim, right? I drove to Charleston that night. Didn't tell anyone, didn't call ahead. Just got in my truck and drove 4 hours through darkness, past the pine forests and flat country roads, until I was parked outside the county jail where my daughter was being held. Visiting hours were over. The building was dark except for security lights. I sat in the parking lot and stared at the concrete walls and barbed wire, knowing she was in there somewhere, scared. Alone, probably hating me more than she'd ever hated anyone. I could fix this. I could walk in tomorrow morning, tell them I'd made a mistake, that I'd given Victoria permission to use my business entity, that the signatures were authorized. I could recant everything and make this go away. All it would cost was my integrity, my financial security, and the truth. I sat in that parking lot until 4 a.m., trying to decide who I wanted to be, the father who protected his daughter no matter what, or the man who refused to be destroyed by someone else's choices. I drove home without making a decision. The arraignment was scheduled for 10 a.m. Detective Morrison had called me, said I didn't have to attend, but I could if I wanted. I told her I'd think about it. I didn't think about it. I just showed up. The courthouse was exactly what you'd expect. Marble floors, security checkpoints, lawyers in expensive suits rushing between courtrooms. I found the right room and sat in the back. Laura was there, sitting in the front row next to her sister. She didn't acknowledge me, didn't even look in my direction. Victoria was brought in wearing orange scrubs. Her hair was unwashed, no makeup. She looked young, vulnerable, nothing like the polished professional who'd been so embarrassed of me at brunch. The judge read the charges. 8 counts of fraud, 6 counts of forgery, 2 counts of identity theft, each one carrying years of prison time. Victoria stood there, shoulders hunched, and I could see her shaking from across the room. Her public defender requested bail. The prosecutor argued she was a flight risk. The judge set bail at $50,000. Laura stood up immediately, said she'd pay it. Victoria's lawyer handed her paperwork. The whole thing took less than 10 minutes. Victoria was released 2 hours later. I watched from my truck as Laura and her sister escorted her out of the courthouse. Victoria was crying. Laura had her arm around her. Neither of them looked my way, but I knew they saw me. You can feel someone watching you, especially when that someone destroyed your life. They drove away. I sat in my truck and tried to figure out why I'd come. My phone rang. Detective Morrison. Mr. Brennan, we need to talk. About what? Victoria's lawyer is claiming you gave her explicit permission to use your business entity, that you were aware of all the contracts and verbally authorized her to sign on your behalf. They're arguing this was a misunderstanding between family members, not fraud. That's bullshit. Can you prove it? Can I prove a negative? How do I prove I didn't say something? That's the problem. This becomes your word against hers, and juries tend to be sympathetic to daughters who claim their fathers are lying to avoid financial responsibility. So, what are you saying? I'm saying this case isn't as strong as I thought. If Victoria testifies that you authorized everything, if she provides evidence of your involvement in her business, if she can establish any pattern of you acting as a silent partner, the fraud charges might not stick. I was never a silent partner, but you did set up software for her. You did provide business resources. You were involved in helping her start the company. Her lawyer is going to argue that using your LLC was just an extension of that support. This is insane. This is how defense attorneys work. They create reasonable doubt, and right now, there's enough doubt that I'm not sure we can get a conviction. So she gets away with it. Unless you have concrete evidence that you explicitly denied her permission to use your business entity, yeah, she probably does. I hung up, sat in my truck outside the courthouse where my daughter had just been arraigned for crimes she absolutely committed, and tried to process the fact that she might walk away from all of it, because I couldn't prove I'd said no. My phone buzzed. Text from Laura. I hope you're proud of yourself. You put her through hell for nothing. The charges won't stick. All you did was humiliate her and cost us $50,000 in bail. Stay away from us. I read it 3 times. Then I threw my phone on the passenger seat and drove home. The house was still empty, still quiet, still broken. I sat at the kitchen table and pulled up my laptop. Started searching through old emails, old documents, anything that might prove I'd never authorized Victoria to use my business. Found nothing. Because why would there be anything? You can't document something that never happened. 3 days later, Detective Morrison called again. We're dropping the charges. What? Victoria's lawyer provided evidence of your involvement in her business. Emails where you discussed the company, text messages where you gave her advice, photos of you at her office helping set up equipment. It's enough to establish that you were actively participating in her venture, which means using your LLC wasn't unauthorized. It was implied consent. That's not what those things mean. In court, it's what they'll be argued to mean, and the prosecutor doesn't think we can overcome that narrative, so we're dropping the charges. I'm sorry, Mr. Brennan. She committed fraud. Maybe, but we can't prove it beyond reasonable doubt. That's the standard. So I'm still liable for all her debts. That's a civil matter. You'll have to work that out with the creditors. But yes, without a fraud conviction, they're going to come after you as the business owner. This is insane. This is the legal system. I'm sorry it didn't work out the way you wanted. She hung up. I sat in my empty house and tried to process what had just happened. Victoria had committed fraud. Real, actual, provable fraud. And she was walking away from it. Because I'd been a supportive father. Because I'd helped her start her business. Because I'd given her advice and visited her office, and all those normal parent things somehow meant I'd authorized her to steal my identity. The creditors started calling again. Now that the criminal charges were dropped, they wanted their money. $50,000, $60,000, $70,000. The number kept climbing. They didn't care that I hadn't signed the contracts. My business name was on them. That made me liable. I called bankruptcy attorneys, got quotes that I couldn't afford, looked into home equity loans and lines of credit, found out I'd need Laura's signature for any of it, and Laura wasn't returning my calls. I was trapped. Completely. Utterly. Trapped. 2 weeks after the charges were dropped, Victoria called me. Dad. I didn't respond. Just held the phone, listening to her breathe. I wanted you to know I'm suing you for emotional distress. For the arrest, the arraignment, the humiliation. My lawyer says we have a strong case. Of course you are. You tried to send me to prison. You committed fraud. I used resources you made available to me. That's not fraud. That's family. Family doesn't steal, Victoria. Family doesn't destroy each other out of spite either. But here we are. Here we are, I agreed. You got away with it. Congratulations. The charges are dropped. You're free. What more do you want? I want you to know that you lost. You tried to ruin me, and you failed. I'm rebuilding my business. I'm going to be bigger than I ever was. And you? You're going to be exactly where you've always been. Small town, small life, small man. At least I'm not a fraud. Neither am I. The court said so. She hung up. I sat there with the phone in my hand and realized she was right. I'd lost, completely. She'd committed crimes, and I'd tried to hold her accountable, and all I'd done was destroy my marriage, empty my bank account, and prove that justice doesn't exist when you're fighting someone who's willing to lie better than you can tell the truth. Laura filed for separation 3 days later. The papers were delivered by a process server who looked apologetic. 30 years of marriage. Ended because I'd tried to do the right thing and done it in the worst possible way. I signed the papers. What else was I going to do? The next few weeks blurred together. Wake up, go to work, come home to an empty house. Repeat. The creditors kept calling. I stopped answering. Let them send their letters. Let them threaten lawsuits. I didn't have the money to pay them anyway. I'd lost maybe 15 pounds. Wasn't eating much. Wasn't sleeping much either. The house felt wrong without Laura in it. Too quiet, too empty. I kept expecting to hear her in the kitchen, making coffee, humming to herself while she cooked, but there was nothing. Just silence and the weight of everything I'd destroyed. Marcus called once, asked how I was doing. I told him I was fine, which was obviously a lie. He didn't push, just said if I needed anything, to let him know. We both knew I wouldn't call. Victoria's lawsuit was progressing. My lawyer, the one I'd hired with money I didn't have, said her case was weak. Emotional distress was hard to prove, but it didn't matter if she won or lost. Just the existence of the lawsuit was costing me money I couldn't afford. She's trying to bleed you dry, my lawyer explained. Make you spend so much on legal fees that you can't fight back. It's a common tactic. Is it working? Probably, yeah. I sold my truck, bought something cheaper, used, barely running, put the difference toward my legal bills. It wasn't enough. It was never going to be enough. One night, around 2 a.m. when I couldn't sleep, I pulled up Victoria's social media. She'd been posting again, photos of new events she was planning, smiling pictures with clients, quotes about resilience and overcoming adversity. She'd even posted something about toxic family members and learning to cut them out of your life. 800 likes, 200 comments, all supportive, all congratulating her on being brave. Nobody knew what she'd done. Nobody knew about the fraud, the forgeries, the lies. To everyone watching, she was the victim and I was the villain. Maybe I was. I shut down the laptop and tried to sleep. Didn't work. Just lay there staring at the ceiling, thinking about all the choices that led me here. The button I'd pressed, the evidence I'd gathered, the police report I'd filed. Every single decision felt inevitable at the time, necessary, right. Now they all felt like mistakes. Around October, things got worse. One of the creditors filed suit. Sterling Events, the venue company. They wanted their deposit back, plus damages. $47,000. My lawyer said we could fight it, but it would cost almost as much to defend as it would to settle. So what do I do? You could declare bankruptcy. What does that mean for my business? You'd probably lose it. Assets get liquidated to pay creditors. You'd be starting over from nothing. Starting over at 52 years old. No business, no wife, no daughter, no money, just nothing. I need time to think about it. Don't wait too long. The longer this drags out, the more expensive it gets. I left his office and drove to the diner where Laura and I used to have breakfast on Sundays, sat in our usual booth, ordered coffee, stared at the empty seat across from me and tried to remember what it felt like to be happy. Couldn't remember. The waitress, Betty, knew me, knew Laura. She'd served us for 15 years. She set down my coffee with a sympathetic look. Haven't seen Laura in a while. She's staying with her sister. Everything okay? No. Betty nodded like she'd expected that answer. Marriage is hard, but you two always seemed solid. We were. Then I did something stupid. Must have been pretty stupid. Yeah, it was. She patted my shoulder and walked away. I drank my coffee and watched people come and go. Families, couples, happy people who hadn't destroyed their lives over pride and principle. My phone buzzed, an email from my lawyer. The subject line made my stomach drop. Second lawsuit filed. Lux Catering. $18,000. I closed my eyes and tried to breathe through the panic. 2 lawsuits, $65,000 combined. More than I made in a year, more than I could possibly pay. I was going to lose everything. The door to the diner opened. I looked up out of habit and my heart stopped. Victoria. She saw me immediately. Her face went hard. She turned to leave, but then stopped, turned back, walked over to my booth. "This is my town," she said quietly. "You don't get to sit here and make me uncomfortable." "I've been coming to this diner for 30 years, Victoria, long before you decided to come back. I'm meeting a client here for a new event. I'm rebuilding, Dad, despite what you tried to do to me, so you need to leave." "No." Her eyes narrowed. "Excuse me?" "I said no, I'm not leaving. You want to meet your client here, fine. But I was here first. Are you kidding me right now? Do I look like I'm kidding?" She stared at me for a long moment. Then she pulled out her phone, typed something, put it back in her pocket. "You're pathetic. You know that? Sitting here in your sad little booth, drinking your sad little coffee, acting like you're the victim. You did this to yourself." "I did it to myself. That's funny. Because last I checked, I wasn't the one who forged signatures. Last you checked, the charges were dropped, which means I didn't do anything wrong. The charges were dropped because you're a good liar. Doesn't mean you're innocent." She leaned in close. Her voice was low, vicious. "You tried to send me to prison, your own daughter, because I hurt your feelings. And you lost. You lost everything, your wife, your money, your dignity, and I'm still here, still successful, still building. So yeah, Dad, you did this to yourself." She straightened up. "My client will be here in 5 minutes. If you're still here, I'm calling the police and telling them you're harassing me." "Go ahead." She pulled out her phone, actually dialed. "Yes, I'd like to report harassment. There's a man in the diner on Main Street who won't leave me alone. Yes, he's still here. No, he's my father, but that doesn't matter. Thank you." She hung up, smiled at me. "Police are on their way." "Good. I'll tell them about the fraud you committed." "The fraud that wasn't fraud? The charges that were dropped? That fraud? Please do. I'd love to hear you try to convince them I'm a criminal when the actual police already determined I'm not." I stood up. Not because she'd won, just because sitting there felt like drowning. "You're right," I said quietly. "I lost. I lost my wife, my savings, my peace of mind. I lost everything trying to hold you accountable for what you did, and you're walking away clean. Finally, you're getting it. But you lost something too, Victoria, something you're too blind to see right now." "What's that?" "Me, your father. The person who loved you before you were even born, who taught you to ride a bike and helped you with homework and drove to your college every weekend when you were homesick. You lost that, and money can't buy it back." Her face flickered, just for a second. Something that might have been regret or doubt or the faintest recognition that she'd gone too far. But it passed quickly, replaced by that cold hardness she'd perfected. "I never had that, Dad. I had a small-town handyman who was embarrassed of having ambition, who wanted me to stay here and be small like him. I lost that years ago. I just finally had the courage to admit it." She walked away. I left cash on the table for the coffee and walked out before the police showed up, sat in my truck in the parking lot and watched through the window as Victoria greeted her client. All smiles, all professional charm, like she hadn't just threatened to have me arrested, like I didn't exist. I drove home and pulled into the empty driveway of the empty house and sat there trying to figure out what I was supposed to do now. The lawsuits were piling up. My marriage was over. My daughter hated me. My business was circling the drain. And I'd done it all trying to do the right thing. Laura's words echoed in my head. At some point, you have to decide what's more important, being right or having a family. I'd chosen being right, and she was correct. I'd lost my family. I went inside and pulled up the bankruptcy forms online, started filling them out, name, address, assets, debts. It was almost therapeutic in a horrible way. Listing everything I was about to lose, quantifying the destruction. I got halfway through before I stopped. If I filed bankruptcy, Victoria won completely. Not just legally, not just financially. She'd know she'd destroyed me. She'd know she'd taken everything I'd built over 50 years and crushed it because I'd dared to hold her accountable. I couldn't let her win. Not completely, but I also couldn't keep fighting. I didn't have the money, didn't have the energy, didn't have anything left to give. So I did the only thing I could think of. I called Marcus. "David, didn't expect to hear from you. I need a favor." "What kind of favor?" "The kind you're probably going to hate me for asking." "Try me." "I need Victoria's new business documents, contracts, vendor agreements, anything she signed since the charges were dropped." Long silence. Then, "Why?" "Because she's doing it again. Using my business entity, my signature. She never stopped. The police dropped the charges, but she kept committing fraud. And if I can prove it, If I can show a pattern, maybe I can reopen the investigation. David, that's insane. You already tried this. It didn't work. It didn't work because I couldn't prove she'd done it without my permission. But if I can show she kept doing it after the charges were dropped, after we publicly had this fight, there's no way she can claim I authorized it. She's not going to make that mistake again. She's smarter now. Maybe. Or maybe she's arrogant enough to think she's untouchable. Marcus sighed. Even if I give you this stuff, even if you find what you're looking for, you really want to go through all this again? The investigation, the arrest, the trial? You really want to put yourself and Laura and everyone else through this nightmare a second time? I want her to face consequences for what she did. No, you want revenge. There's a difference. Maybe there is. But I'm past caring about the distinction. Another silence. Then, I'll think about it. Marcus, I said I'll think about it. That's the best you're getting right now. He hung up. I sat with my phone in my hand and tried to convince myself I wasn't becoming something worse than Victoria. Tried to convince myself this was about justice, not revenge. Failed. 3 days later, Marcus called back. I got you something. My heart rate spiked. What? Copies of 4 new contracts Victoria signed last week, all under Brennan Restoration, LLC, all with what I'm guessing are forged signatures. How did you get them? I still have access to some of her cloud storage. She hasn't changed all her passwords yet. Don't ask me for details. Marcus, Don't thank me. Just promise me something. What? Promise me this is the last time. Win or lose, whatever happens with these documents, you're done after this. No more investigations, no more lawsuits, no more destroying yourself to prove a point. Just done. I promise. You're lying, but okay. David, I'm not stupid. You're not going to stop until one of you is completely destroyed. I just hope for everyone's sake it's her and not you. The documents arrived by email an hour later. 4 contracts, 4 forged signatures. All dated after the criminal charges were dropped. Proof that Victoria was still committing fraud. I called Detective Morrison. Mr. Brennan, I was wondering when I'd hear from you again. I have new evidence. Of course you do. No, listen. Victoria's been signing contracts with my business name. After the charges were dropped, after our public fight. There's no way she can claim I authorized this. Send me what you have. I'll review it. I sent everything, then I waited. She called back 2 hours later. This is good, really good. If these signatures are consistent with the previous forgeries, we can reopen the case. Can you arrest her? Not immediately. We need to verify everything, get warrants, build the case properly this time. But yeah, if this checks out, she's looking at new charges. How long? 2 weeks, maybe 3. 3 weeks? We have to do this right, Mr. Brennan. If we rush it, her lawyer will get it thrown out again. Be patient. Be patient. While Victoria continued to ruin me financially, while Laura stayed gone, while my life continued to fall apart. Just do it fast, okay? I'll do my best. 2 weeks later, Victoria was arrested again. This time, bail was set at $200,000. This time, Laura didn't show up to pay it. This time, Victoria sat in jail for 3 days before Marcus finally bailed her out, though God knows why he felt obligated. This time, the charges stuck, because this time, there was no reasonable doubt. Victoria had committed fraud after publicly fighting with me, after the previous charges, after being explicitly warned to stay away from my business entity. She'd done it anyway, and now she was going to prison.